Hello and welcome to this match preview for Sunderland vs Southampton. So now we're going to talk about a little bit of a review because I didn't actually make a video, but we'll talk a little bit about the QPR game. Obviously we won 2-1. So we're going to start off with Alcaraz. He only lasted, 55, 60 minutes? He just wasn't good. And I've said it multiple times. He sort of picks up the ball sort of in the 8 role, right? When your back's turned against the opposition midfield, you're in your defensive third. And it's as if he thinks he's in the attacking third. Whenever he receives the ball in that sort of area, he always goes, oh, there's a guy behind, I'll beat him, I'll flick it past him, oh, no look pass, I'll do this, I'll do that. Which is fine in the final third to sort of confuse the defenders and create a hole, right? But defensively, no, Alcaraz, just not. And I think that's why he got bloody hauled off the pitch, to be honest. Shocking. He hasn't been the greatest this season. I think he's sort of trying to adapt to a more 8 role when he's quite clearly a 10. And it's a bit of a difficult transition for him. So, I mean, it'll be interesting to see. Obviously, he's a good player. He's got massive potential, but I just don't feel comfortable with him playing in that sort of role. I don't feel comfortable with him picking the ball up in our sort of half. Because a lot of the times he plays very risky passes, very risky attempts at sort of progressing the play, which isn't exactly what we need when we're playing a position based. We don't need riskiness in the defensive third. So yeah, we'll talk about some stuff as well. Fraser, Ryan Fraser, obviously, not many people are big fans of signing him. I don't give a shit about loan players. I mean, if someone comes in on loan, it really doesn't have a negative effect on the team at all. Because if they're shit, they don't play and they just go back to their parent club. It's not as if we bought Fraser for 15 million, right? He's not replacing Tella, as Russell Martin said. He's not replacing anyone. He's improving the squad around. And, I mean, he came off the bench and did well. I mean, you can't really fault his performance. He was pretty good. Obviously, he joined like 2 days before the game, so he hasn't really had time to sort of adapt to the style of play and fully understand it. So, in reality, if that's how good he is without sort of fully understanding the system, he could be a bloody good player in a couple months. So, Ryan Fraser, good signing. Obviously, Holgate, I don't know how good Holgate is, to be honest, but obviously that's something we'll have to find out with Stephen's injury. He may play this week. Who knows? But also, Adozie as well, especially in that first half. Not so much in the second, but his first half was electric, beating his fullback every time. And that's the sort of Adozie that I've always envisioned. The guy who just receives the ball, turns, face the fullback, beats him. Simple as that, beats him every time. And he got his goal for it. I don't know I think it's his first goal in professional football. I'm not sure. Or senior football or something like that. But brilliant goal, brilliant performance in the first half. Second half went a bit more quiet. But again, you can't expect a player, an explosive winger, to sort of be there for 90 minutes constantly beating a man. Eventually it's going to sort of maybe they make tactical changes. We have to adapt our own system. Obviously, I'm pretty sure when Ryan Fraser came on, he did switch to the right-hand side. Maybe he's not as good there. There's a lot of question marks over that, but his first half was brilliant. And now talking about Adam Armstrong, because obviously he is the GOAT apparently. A good game from him again. He's definitely starting to get better at finding the pockets of space. It was a great finish as well against QPR. Was a little bit lucky with a touch because it obviously wasn't what he wanted to do, but he adapted quickly and finished it. But I would say in the Premier League, that touch probably would get tackled. But I think in the Championship, they're a little bit, they're not as tight on you really in terms of defensively because there is a lot of gaps, and we can see it with our defence. It's very gapey, you could say. There's a lot of gaps in both the opposition and attacking, opposition and defensive. Opposition and us, you know what I mean. And Adam Armstrong starting, I think, to figure out how to do that. So another good performance from him. Last person we're going to talk about is the youngster, Emio. Yep, that's my pronunciation. I've said it many times in the previews and whatnot. I don't want him to start, and I think we saw why. He's not ready to start. I felt as though he was very isolated basically the whole first half. Which obviously you can't say is 100% his fault, but I feel like in the second half is when he would have flourished. Like when Ryan Fraser came on, that sort of timing, I think he would have done good. But then again, who else was he going to play? Tella had left, on the day or a day earlier. So, I mean, I understand why he had to start. There wasn't really any other option. You weren't going to sign Ryan Fraser and the next day play him, start him in the starting 11. So I understand why he started, but I don't think he's fully ready. I don't think he's fully ready. And the last person we're going to talk about is Armstrong from QPR, because he was a beast. I mean, he was a monster. I mean, God, I was looking at him like, I don't mind a third Armstrong. I don't really look at many teams that we play against or whatever and think, oh, that's a player I'd love to have. But Armstrong, yeah, I'll take him. I'll take him. Free Armstrong sounds bloody good to me, because he's a monster, an absolute beast. And we're very lucky that they sort of, especially in the last 30 minutes of the game, they really stifled their attack by just hoofing it to him. I mean, if they could sort of try and link the play with him, like, he will hold up the ball. He will get the ball. And a lot of times he did get the ball, but there's no options. Bednarak can sort of bully him off it or whatever. But he's a brilliant prospect, brilliant player. And I'd love him, but obviously we're not going to sign him. But, in a fantasy world, I would bloody well take him. But overall, for the QPR game, we were very lucky. I feel as if there was definitely that 5-10 minutes after the first half into the second half where we really could have lost it, lost our grip on the game, because obviously I think they hit the crossbar. They had a few more chances, as well as when they scored, we sort of lost our way a bit, and Bazunu sort of saved us from it. That's when Sinclair Armstrong scored us off. I think it's Sinclair scored his offside goal, and that chance where he just drives in and just fake shots. Everyone's falling over, and Bazunu makes a great save. So there was moments in that game where we were definitely shaky defensively, and that's not a surprise. I mean, you go into this game, we're not going to keep a clean sheet. Come on. I don't remember when our last one was. I think it was in our last win, right? Our last win against Leicester in the Prem. So like 5 months ago. Yeah, so we're not exactly known for our defensive ability. But yeah, there was definitely times in that game, it was similar to the Plymouth game, where it really could have shifted in their direction. But luckily for us, a few bit of clutch defending and a few bit of wasteful opportunities from them, I'd say, sort of made it lucky for us to get through. But we got the 3 points, which is the main thing. But overall, we're getting better. Obviously, once the window's done, we can fuck off everyone who doesn't want to be here, get some players who are actually going to want to play, and then we're going to have more squad rotation, bit more squad depth, and then hopefully Russell Ball will be in full effect. And now let's talk about Sunderland a little bit. Now, obviously, I'm no expert, so, it is what it is. But Sunderland have a good start, right? Was it playoff semi-finals last year? I can't remember exactly where they finished, but it was like 4th or something. And they're 18th. Not the greatest start. Only 1 win from their first 4. All very close games, though. All very close games. They just drew with Coventry 0-0. In reality, I've watched some of it. Obviously, again, I'm not a professional analyst. I don't fucking watch whole replays to write down all the transitions and write down all the formation switches, in position, out of position, all that sort of stuff. But I just sort of watched it and give a sort of brief overview of what I've seen. So, in reality, from what I saw, was Sunderland are quite unlucky. I mean, the first goal they ever conceded was a deflection, and then the next game they conceded another deflection. It just sort of wasn't going their way. A few missed opportunities, but looking at the highlights and whatnot, you can see that Sunderland are not easily beaten, you could say. They're sort of always in the game, always creating chances, but they are a little bit, just a little bit, and who isn't really, but just a little bit available for a counter-attack. Yeah, I mean, but most teams are. I mean, most sort of teams you'd expect to dominate sort of the opposition are obviously going to be more prone to counterattacks depending on the team. But in reality, Sunderland, I think, have just been unlucky. I don't think there's like any alarm bells ringing, oh, fuck, our season's over. Oh, we're going to be shit. I think it's more just a sort of, you've got to get over the disappointment of last year, the disappointment of not getting promoted, right? Not getting even to the playoff final. That's obviously going to hurt the team a lot with their confidence and all that. So you sort of just got to let it bleed back into the team. And I'm pretty sure that we'll see in about maybe a month or two, Sunderland will be in top 6. Maybe not top 6, maybe top 8, right? They'll be back in the race. I think Sunderland will be fine in terms of their ambitions to attempt to get to the Premier League. I think they'll be fine. From what I've seen, the games could have gone another way, really. Obviously, I'd say the only game that was sort of a bit far was Ipswich, from what I saw. But that's first game of the season. Fuck, that's ages away. That's ages ago now. So yeah, I think Sunderland will be fine. Sunderland do play a 4-2-3-1. which is sort of... It's hard to say because obviously I haven't watched their games fully, so I can't actually say do they play a 4-2-3-1 in or out of position, what's their out of position, what's their in position, all these sort of things, what does the 10 do in defence and that. There's so many things that could be taken from a 4-2-3-1, so I can't really comment on it that much because obviously I haven't watched them. Just be honest, I haven't watched them. It's hard being in New Zealand because you don't have like it's a Saturday, you've got games at, midday, afternoon, late afternoon. The next day you've got games in the afternoon, and you're just like, oh, fuck it, I'm doing something, I'll just chuck it on, and then maybe you'll be like, oh, that's happened, or maybe, in my case, I go, okay, we're playing Sunderland next week, I might actually watch their game or keep it on, so it's a bit difficult for me because I ain't getting up after, being up for till 4 a.m. or something, and then watching 90 minutes of another team, I'm just not going to do that, but one day maybe, if I move to England, I'll be able to actually do that and sort of give some sort of analysis. Not exactly professional, but yeah, so I can't really comment on their 4-2-3-1 system too much. They've obviously got the Joe Bellingham, that's about all I know from Sunderland. I don't really know many players, if I'm being completely honest with you. There's the striker, turn the brightness up on that. There's buddy Ross Stewart, who we're apparently interested in. Who knows if that's actually going to happen? I wouldn't have a clue, and I don't know how good he is of a player, but yeah, let's just move on to preferred lineup because it's difficult talking about other teams, so I don't want to make assumptions about them that I don't particularly know myself because then people are going to be like, you're a fuckwit, which is fair enough. So I'm just not going to comment on it, but we'll move on to preferred lineup. There's a few changes here. Normally every week it's like, oh, here's the same 11, but it's going to be a bit different because of injuries, because of new signings, and obviously departures. So obviously in goal, Bazunu, no comment. We're not having Alex McCarthy. I'd rather commit. Right back, Walker Peters. I haven't seen any rumours sort of him nearly close to a move, so he'll be starting. Centre backs. Now, obviously, with Stevens injured, I don't believe he's out for too long. It wasn't like an ACL or something like that. So he might be out for 2, 3, 4 games. But we do have a new centre back, Mason Holgate. Will he jump in? I don't know. Jan Bednarek will obviously start, and I'm thinking it would depend how much Holgate's impressed Russell Martin, right? How fast he's learning. Because I think Russell Martin's not going to play anyone in sort of starting 11 that really isn't understanding what we want to do, right? So I feel as if Shay Charles will play centre-back because obviously he's played there... He played their majority of last game because obviously the injury of Stevens, he dropped in and Downs came on. So I think Shay Charles will play that centre-back role with Bednarek. And then obviously Manning will play left-back, Perot's left to Nice. Apparently everyone hates Manning. I don't particularly care that much, to be honest. But, mistakes happen. We've watched horrible defending for about 5 years. It's not really much difference. Midfield-wise, obviously Flynn Downs is going to be playing CDM because Shay Charles has dropped to the centre-back role. And I think Flynn Downs would be our starting defensive mid anyway. So I don't think that's some big crazy thing about him starting. He obviously knows the system already from his time at Swansea. So, majority of the system, not obviously 100%, but he's sort of going to be our starting defensive mid. Shay Charles will be the second choice / rotation centre-back, those sort of things. So, Downs defensive mid, centre mids. I guess the only options are Stuart Armstrong and Alcaraz. There isn't really any other options. I don't know if Smallbone's fit. I don't believe he is, but obviously I could be wrong about that. If Smallbone is 100% fit to play, he will start because he's good at dictating the tempo. But other than that, it will be Stuart Armstrong and Alcaraz, which, again, it's just sort of like, I don't like that dynamic at the moment. I don't know whether it's sort of Stuart Armstrong not really fitting that or Alcaraz not really filling that. Alcaraz has to be a bit deeper because maybe Stuart Armstrong doesn't cover defensively as much. It's sort of like there's something about that midfield trio that I don't like. And I feel like if Smallbone was in there for Stuart Armstrong, for example, I feel like it would work better. I think Smallbone drops in more and can really... And he obviously dictates the play, and I think that allows Alcaraz to sort of get further forward and sort of roam. But I think with Stuart Armstrong, he can't as much. That's just my takeaway from it. But that will be the midfield three. I would be surprised if they changed it. Obviously, the only change would be Smallbone, right? So whether he's fit or not would be the only change. But then we go to the front three. Obviously, Teller's gone. I don't really care that Teller's gone, to be honest. for in the first few games. Obviously, he scored a goal on assist. Brilliant, right? Well done. But he was very passive. I mean, if you compared him to sort of what Edozie was trying to do and then what Teller was doing, it was like complete opposite. Edozie gets the ball, attacks, tries to create, tries to beat players, attacks. Teller, pass back, doesn't want to run in behind. So, I don't know, maybe it's just his head was gone. You know, his head was a bit turned. He was sort of like, you know how players are. When the motivation isn't there, they sometimes don't want to work as hard. So, yeah, I mean, it might just be that, but 20 mil plus sell-on or something like that? It's a great deal, in my opinion. He's only had one good season in the Championship, and then to move to Leverkusen for 20 mil. I mean, that's a good deal for us, really. But then, obviously, we'll go left wing will be Edozie. I mean, I don't think you can drop him. He's been excellent beating players, especially in the third, it seems like he has one good half and then sort of drops off a little bit. Against Plymouth, it was the second half where he sort of got him behind, started to beat players, create chances. And the first half wasn't so much against Plymouth. Opposite against QPR, first half was electric, second half not so much. So it'd be interesting to see when he decides to turn up. First half, second half, or maybe the whole 90 minutes, that'd be great. But Edozie's got to be on the left wing. Obviously, he scored his first goal as well, so his confidence probably through the roof. Right wing's got to be Ryan Fraser. I mean, I've already talked about Amao. I hate pronouncing names. Amao, he's just not ready for me to start. Brilliant off the bench, will be brilliant in the future. I just don't think he's ready to start. So I think Ryan Fraser, he had a good cameo, a week of training. I think he'll start on the right. He plays left wing, doesn't he? Would he move it? I don't... See, for me personally, I feel like Edozie's more of a direct player, so you want sort of to him be as comfortable as possible on his sort of role. So you want him to be left wing and drive at them. I think Fraser can adapt to the right wing. I'd play Fraser right wing, but he may play Fraser left, Edozie right. I don't know. Maybe they switch throughout the game, bit of a fluid I'd say front three, but without the striker. Sort of those two wingers being a bit more fluid with their positioning and where they pick the ball up. But obviously striker, I think we can all guarantee Adams isn't going to be playing. I don't know what the fuck's going on with him. Hey, Everton have pulled out. Palace are now in the race. I don't know whether he's staying or going. I wouldn't have a clue. So I'm expecting Adams maybe to be on the bench, maybe, but he's not going to start, I'd say. I don't think he'll start. So Adam Armstrong's obviously going to be starting. Was it 4 goals and 1 assist, is it? I think, in 4 games. So he's had a great start, fast start. Obviously only 1 goal from a non-penalty, because the first goal really doesn't. It's just a deflection, right? So hopefully he can continue what he did against QPR as well. He's a hard worker. He works hard, and that's sort of what you want as a striker. You don't want a lazy fucker up front. You want someone who's going to run hard for the team, press the opposition, and if needed, defend, right? And that's what he's done a lot, which you can praise the most probably about his game is his willingness to defend, his willingness to come back on defence, the willingness to help out the team, win possession. That's probably honestly his strongest asset at this point. It's good. It's good to see. It's good to see that he gives a shit, right? You can tell that he wants to work hard. He wants to help the team out defensively, which is very rare for a striker. It's not common. So yeah, that will be the team, obviously. A few changes in there due to injury, signings and whatnot. I wouldn't be surprised to see Holgate start, because obviously Shea Charles isn't a natural centre half, in my opinion. He's more of a defensive, but can obviously play there pretty decently. So it would all depend on how Mason Holgate's been holding up in training. If he's been doing well, then I could see him starting. But we'll go to prediction now. And the prediction for this game, being away from home, it's not going to be easy. Right? It's not going to be easy in the slightest. Even though Sunderland have not been in the greatest of form, and obviously we've been in... I mean, I wouldn't even say we've been in great form. I mean, we've been quite lucky with a lot of the results, right? I feel like the Norwich game, very lucky. Plymouth game, we're lucky in the first half. And QPR, we were very lucky again. I feel like we've had lucky moments and have sort of swifted up. Maybe you could look at this. Sunderland, their luck sort of not happened so far. They've been a bit unlucky. Close results, just can't get it through. On our regard, it's the opposite. We've had a bit of luck to get through results and get the wins. So, this game's going to be difficult. Stadium of Light's not an easy place to go. It's a big game, but definitely our toughest test so far. Toughest travel, definitely. And it'll be interesting to see how Sunderland sort of counter us, because Norwich countered us like no tomorrow. They ripped us apart every 2 seconds. So I wouldn't be surprised to see Sunderland do maybe the same. And it'll all depend on how well Flynn Downs can cover that sort of midfield transition, because obviously against Norwich and against Plymouth and against Sheffield Wednesday and all that, it sort of was not the greatest. The midfield sort of felt that they weren't there a lot of the time. I felt like that with Alcaraz being too high, Shea Charles sometimes being too overly aggressive, Stuart Armstrong just sort of there. I don't think there was enough defensive cover, but I think with Flynn Downs there, and then hopefully Smallbone be fit, but if he's not, unfortunate, but a Smallbone sort of player who can actually drop in and defend as well. Because I think the best performance we've had this year was against Sheffield Wednesday, and I feel like that was because our midfield was stacked. Right, we had Ward-Prowse in it. Ward-Prowse, Smallbone. I mean, that's a stacked midfield. Not really a DM, right? Smallbone's not really a DM in my regard. Flynn Downs and Shea Charles are more DMs, so it'll be interesting to see how they counter us. But my prediction's going to be a draw. Obviously not a 0-0 draw because we can't defend. So I'll go for a 1-1 draw. I think Sunderland's games have been, I don't want to say low scoring, but they have been a little bit compared to us, obviously. I mean, that's day and night, really. We concede goals left, right and centre and score goals left, right and centre. So I'm going to go for a 1-1 draw. I think it's going to be a difficult game. Definitely the hardest test so far this season. And this may be the game that sort of turns Sunderland's season. Starts to get them turning in the right direction if they can get a win. And for us, I mean, it'll just be continuing the sort of train we're on at the moment, the sort of good start to the league. Still sort of got question marks in the air about some players coming in. To keep winning in those sort of circumstances, new manager, a lot of players that were shit before starting to turn up a bit, players that are leaving, players that are coming in. It's all of a mess. And I think we've handled it pretty well. We've only, this is our last game for the window. Well, I guess when the game starts, the window will be closed. But, you know what I mean, right? So, yeah, that's going to be the video. 1-1 draw prediction. I'll put a community post so you can, say what you think the result will be. I'm now going to be streaming live, maybe on TikTok. I might be live on TikTok. I don't know. It depends if we pass the 1,000 follower threshold before the game. But I'll be streaming 30 minutes before kickoff now instead of 5 minutes or 10 minutes like I used to do. So you can sort of talk about it a little bit before. But yeah, that's going to be this video. I hope you all enjoyed. Like, subscribe if you did. And I'll see you guys for the Sunderland match this weekend.